Welcome to Dragon Tales. I'm Sandra Pelly, the Dragon Ally. In this podcast, we explore the magical world of dragons, from connecting with your dragon and building relationships to dragon energy. Each episode dives into the transformative power of dragons. Why dragons, you might ask? They are powerful allies in our spiritual journeys, helping us unlock our inner strength and transform our lives. Join me to explore topics like meeting your dragon, dragon eggs, and dragon light language, as well as personal stories from our community. Discover how your inner dragon can guide you. Ready to embrace your inner dragon? Subscribe to Dragon Tales, visit our website, follow us on social media, and join our community. Let's take flight together.
Woohoo! It's so comical. Every time the recording starts, I go woohoo! And I've only been doing this with the Dragon Tales podcast.
Oh,
So
wow.
there's something really energetic about that. I am very, very excited to have Barbara here, the East Coast Dragon Lady. And let me just tell you a little bit about her before we get started. She's affectionately known as the East Coast Dragon Lady and Galactic Dragon Ambassador. She is a retired registered nurse, has bleh. Let me do this part again. Let me tell you a little bit about Barbara. Wow. First of all, she's affectionately known as the East Coast Dragon Lady and the Galactic Dragon Ambassador. She is a retired registered nurse who has dedicated her life to spiritual exploration and dragon wisdom. With a career spanning over 30 years, Barbara has delved into various modalities, making her a channel to numerous dragons, dragon collectives, and ascended masters. And I can just feel the power of that. And first of all, dragons for 30 years or doing this stuff for 30 years, loving the energy of that.
Not that's actually that is sort of that was somebody a little bit exaggerated. No, not dragons for 30 years. No, I'm actually relatively new to dragons, but not to when you meet other people who have said, oh, I've been 30 years, 25 years, it's just a few years. But and a lot of it I didn't recognize until, the channeling in particular. I spent many years automatic writing. I used to say, and I never put it in that I was channeling until I was part of a group where somebody actually said, Barbara is a channel to ascended masters. And I thought, I'm a channel? And literally, minute I spoke, I'm a channel, everything shifted. I mean, it went from me just, right. And my writing was interesting because I didn't know who or what I was writing. And I would often ask, well, who's this? And sure enough, they would give me a name. Actually, my favorite one that happened, and it was before I was really channeling dragons, but Merlin has been with me on and off for that 30 years. One day I got this beautiful message and I was like, I don't know, who is this? And she just signed it, Gwendolyn. And I was like, who's Gwendolyn? So thank goodness for Google. I Googled it and it's Merlin's wife. And I went, oh, Merlin has a wife. And it was sort of like, well, and that sort of, I think then I realized that, because, we often think we're making up, is this just what I'm writing? Or I'm just getting this message. So when I got the confirmation it was Gwendolyn, and she has said she doesn't say very much because, she is there for Merlin, but she told me she walks with me every day. I'm like a sister. And she said, I walk and hold your hand every day. And it's sort of comforting to know somebody is that. I mean, Merlin seems to be like everybody has had some encounter with Merlin, not just in this, all over the world. He's been around, as he says, he tells me he's old as dirt.
And he is.
He actually said, well, I'm as old as dirt. And he also likes to speak in the old ways. And he some of the channeled message I got were very of the old English, old ways, because he says that's who, and he acts and thinks like an older, so he's an ancient. Yeah.
Okay, you know what? I'm gonna just kind of go, okay, let's whoa delay a bit. Let's take a breath. I know that the dragon energy is really amped up around the two of us. I can just
Yeah.
feel the excitement and, you know, it's so interesting because I was using this phrase with Kevin Humphrey the other day, the beautiful Galactic Dragon Thunder summits that he's been doing, and you're a really big part of that this year with the
Yeah.
um,
Well,
hosting in your continent. And just let me say one thing to the group here is that when I said this year, know that this is actually something that's been going on for some time, and it plans on actually going way bigger and for a number of years following. So whatever year this is that you're listening to this, it is up and coming. Okay.
No, I was just going to say that I was his co-host last year.
Okay.
And literally there was a handful of us, like, and he only knew a handful of us that sort of did something dragony. And then once he started putting it out and we started doing it, 1,000 people came. So that was what I was. Yeah.
Yeah. So dragon energy is really massive right now. It's really leading up to something. Humanity is shifting. Humanity is changing. And by your own words here, I love that you actually corrected me in my thinking that your bio meant that you've been connected with dragons for 30 years, when in reality it's been a lot shorter, very much shorter for myself as well. Mine has been, like you said, an awareness that dragons have actually been around me for some time, but not an actual working with dragons and really stepping into that. So how did that start for you, the working with dragons or connecting with a dragon?
Right. Well, I had embraced the fact that I was channeling, and I would often get messages. Where I live, I live north of Boston in Massachusetts. So, I'm up very high. So oftentimes when there are clouds and it was a beautiful day, but there was a lot of low misty clouds. And while I was walking, I kept hearing, look up. And I was like, look up. And I looked up, and I was literally taken aback, because they weren't just like dragons standing still. They were flying, and they were huge. And thankfully we carry cell phones with us. And I'm like, for my own like sanity, I need to take pictures, because I'm seeing dragons. I'd not had any communication at all, just these huge dragons appearing. I actually have photos, which I'll share again. And when I came home, so went on my walk, and they appeared, and they would come down. They huge, I mean, massive wings on them, and they were just frolicking. And I was aware that they were just having fun, and they appeared to me. There was about 6 dragons. When I came home and started to like look into my phone, I could see faces, dragon faces. And I was like, oh, dragons. I didn't know what that meant. Not as a child had I ever thought nothing dragon at all. And then I got nothing for a couple of days. And I was like, everybody I knew, I was going, I saw dragons. What does that mean? What are dragons? And they were like, oh, I've heard people, but nobody really was connecting to dragons. And then they started to talk a little bit, not a lot. But then I started to realize there was something going on. And I haven't really connected with just a dragon. I tend to connect with collectives. And they've actually told me that I've got guardian dragons and I've got dragons around me, but one of my jobs is to connect, and they call me their scribe. They want me to write about them, and as the collectives come, they will give me information. Like there was a lot of incoming dragons coming in the beginning of the year, and I saw them as like rainbows, but not just rainbow. They were rainbows in clouds, and they very descriptive, but they don't speak it, they just show you. So I saw these coming in, and then other people started to say they were seeing them, or they'd landed in different countries. So you're right, we seem to have woken up that was 3, just coming up for 3 years. Before that, nothing but Merlin. So then when I connected with dragons, Merlin showed up again and said, great, now we can get to work. And he goes between Merlin and Merlin the dragon. He shows himself, and he's told me that I was his scribe. I have been his dragon in many lifetimes, that he'd been in and out of lifetimes together. but particularly his dragon and his scribe and his scholar. So I've studied as well. So
So I just want to kind of, again, just take a moment here for people to kind of grasp what's being said here.
Right.
And you said something that was really, really important for, I think, a lot of people to understand and to hear. So I think I want to repeat this. It's like, am I making this up? Is this my imagination?
Yes.
And I want to be very clear to everybody that the way that these incredible creatures, these incredible beings come through is literally, yes, through our imagination, because it is the gateway. It is one of those creative centers that we have within ourselves. And because of that, they are able to flow in with greater ease. And it's really showing, I think, right now, how much humanity is really starting to want to have a lightened up experience in their life because a lot more dragons are coming in right now, right?
Right. And they have a great sense of humor. Sometimes like almost sarcastically, I mean, very sort of dry humor. People often have asked me, like, what's my dragon's name? Or how do I find out my dragon's name? And the dragons have said, and I've asked them, so what are your name? And they said, it's very human to want to name us. And it really doesn't bother them whether they got a name or not. But because I'd said, well, I'd like some names. So they gave me these really old names like Gertrude and Mildred. And they were laughing about it. And they were like, okay, you wanted a name? Yeah, Mildred, Gertrude, here you go. So oftentimes they do want, they will tell, and sometimes you might hear it, but you can't say it. And sometimes it's very long. And you can ask the dragons that. But I think so for me, what I've recently realized about how did I eventually get connected with dragons was I have been doing a lot of work, like a lot of us have, in opening my heart and keeping it open. And the dragons told me a while ago that I wouldn't have been able to have connected with them until I'd done a lot of the work and then opened my heart, which allowed me to actually hear and see them and feel them. I mean, so I've first of all, I didn't see them other than those I called them my sky dragons. I was taking another class with somebody where we were doing some journeying, and I went to Inner Earth, and all of my dragons came, like, talk about a dragon thunder. They all came flying at me at like warp speed. And this is what it still give me goosebumps. They allowed me to hold them so I could look into their eyes. And it just gave me like the chills. And I almost cried because it hit my heart. That's what it did. And it like my heart burst open and I'm like, oh, that's what I needed. So they do that work with us as well.
I want to share something as well. A couple years ago, I was gifted the name the Dragon Ally, and it wasn't from a human. It was literally from the dragons. And like, that's a big thing to really kind of energetically accept and step into. And so during the process of accepting that that's who I am, that night when I went to sleep, I had an experience very similar to yours. And I don't even know how to explain it because it was like all I kept getting was this close up of a dragon eye.
Yes.
And it wasn't one dragon eye. It was like, here comes this one dragon. Here comes another dragon. And it was like so many different colors of different dragon skins around this eye. So many different, scales, feathers, softness, whatever. And it was just like, it felt like the whole night I was being, I dislike the word bombarded because I don't feel like I was being hit with this. I think it was like they were coming in and they were looking at me.
Yes.
And wanting to experience who I was as well. Yeah. Right.
Well, and they get so excited, like when they connect with us and know that we can hear them. And as again, my task is to write their stories, and as I told you, so before we started, I said, they also told me, so again, this is how funny they are. They were telling me that, it was time. They kept telling me, you need to get yourself organized. And they said, we know about computers and you need to get a thumb drive so that you can organize this and keep it separate. Because I have, like we were talking about, pads with messages on and things. So I think that it's, so it's just funny when they actually then organize you. But so I had this experience where they were so excited and they were literally, you said bombarded. I mean, I was getting like downloads and messages, I mean, constantly. And it literally overwhelmed me. And I didn't, because it physically affected me. And then they came to me and they said, oh, we forget that you're human. And we need to back off. And they said, we're going to back off. And then you come to us and tell us when you're ready. And then for a couple of days, like I got nothing. And I hadn't realized how much communication I had until they completely stopped. I'm like, what happened? Where did they go? And then when I was ready to start again, they said, pace us, tell us when you're ready. We'll come up with a contract of how we can contact you and keep speaking to you. But they get so excited, a bit like you were saying, that energy comes in and everyone's like really excited.
Exactly. I want to share something as well because of something else that you said. I'm personally loving this conversation because you're providing an opportunity for people to really start to understand how much of a role they personally each can play in this. Love the throat chakra stuff coming up with that.
Yes.
What you said that they were overwhelming you, and then they came in and said, "Oh, right, you're human. We're going to dial it back," and they basically stopped. And then you are now being asked to step up. One of the things that I've really helped some of the members of my community when they've been overwhelmed with spirit guides is really know that you can stand in your power. That there is you can create a dial in the energy that dials it up or dials it down. So if you're not getting enough of a message, dial it up a little bit. Don't wank it all the way forward because you will get what Barbara's talking about. However, don't keep it so dialed down that you're not getting anything because that doesn't benefit anybody either.
No. And I've said this a few times this week, but everything that I've learned about dragons, they've told me. Like, you can't find this stuff still on the internet. I mean, we were saying that if you Google it, you'll get, video games and stuff like that.
Yeah.
It's very hard to find. And that's what they've been saying to me, is like, we need people, and not just me, we need lots of people to start telling our stories. And one of the things that recently as well, I've woken up to being an ancient and understanding my ancient self, which connects with the dragons and connects with all of that. And they also gave me a name because a lot of my work in the beginning I did out in the galactic world. I was connecting with galactic beings, and then the dragons came in. So they gave me that Galactic Dragon Ambassador title because they said, you're out here, you're working and doing, because a lot of they come from planets as well. I mean, a lot of them said they've taken a long time to get here because they planet hop and they come in. So I had all those conversations, which sometimes you forget because it's almost like you have a dragon that's always talking to you.
Yeah. You better get that thumb drive.
I do have a thumb drive, but it was funny. They were like, and that's the way to slow it down. If I type it, or on the computer, it slows down the flow of, otherwise I can't read my writing if I write it now. So.
Exactly. Yeah. So dragons are connecting you with you. You said that there's like the Dragon Collective. What type of work? Like you said that they're coming to you with the messages. So what is the gist of their messaging? Like if you had to pick a topic or two, what is the gist?
It's all very heart-centered, very Mother Gaia. That they work with Mother Gaia. She will also talk as well. So I often have, messages from Mother Gaia and the dragons. They sometimes pick topics that are like happening or have happened and say, Mother Gaia's really sad. You need, and they will often give me a message for the collective. Like, you need to pay attention, obviously war and that sort of stuff they're very nervous about. And that's why, so they've been giving me a lot of general stuff, but what they've said is that they want me to do more specific, which I'm still waiting for those messages. And I do actually on my, I have a private Facebook page, which the reason I got that, because again, when you first start out doing this, I was like, I wasn't sure I wanted to put out, to the whole Facebook or whatever, that I would dragon messages. So I do have a private Facebook page where I was starting to share those things, and it's changed. If I go back and look over the last year or so, it was, a couple of lines, and now sometimes I can get, so what they actually encouraged me to do was to use oracle cards. They said, we want you to use them, but we don't want you to use that message. We want you to connect to that energy. And then, so when you do that, then you can channel that message. And it was sort of preparing me to do this work of channeling their messages. So, and again, everybody channels differently. For me, I don't have to do a whole lot of meditation. It's almost like they're right off my shoulder, and they're almost like, okay, they start talking. They don't say, can we start talking? They will often if I'm talking about something, they will then give me some, subliminal messages.
So I really want people to understand too that yes, you were doing it privately on Facebook, and when we say privately, it's more about the people that come to see or listen or hear are people who are in alignment with that. It's the people that we know in our other life, meaning the life that we live on a day-to-day basis in our towns and in our communities, that some of those people don't necessarily get who we are. And that's why we go into these private settings. I just really wanted you to be clear about that.
And actually so somebody actually pointed that out about 6 months ago, and they were like, if you're doing this work and you're talking about it, and and you get more comfortable the more you do it, and the dragons help you be more comfortable. They were like, maybe people think it's like secret. You should. So I started to post some things on my regular Facebook page. I actually just posted outfit. And then what surprised me was the number of people that contacted me to say, wow, I've got a dragon. I've had dragons around me for years. And these were people that I would never expected, people I work with. I mean, it wasn't, they were like, oh, you're a bit cuckoo or whatever. They were like, wow, is that what you're doing? And, dragons also help in healing as well. And so I also do Reiki. Like a lot of people that have connected with dragons seem to have, the Reiki connection as well. And I just talked actually on our other podcast that I just put out where I did a healing with somebody the other day, and the dragons dropped in and said, why are you doing that? Like, that's slow. And they showed me how to laser, like do it, clearing chakras. Stop doing that. Look, this is what we do. And then they did cleansing the aura. Look, it's done. And it was like 30 minutes. And the person receiving it actually said, and I didn't know at the time that she was a Reiki master, she said, whoa, what was that? That was really fast, but wow, am I clear? And it was just, they were literally sort of moved me aside and said, let me just show you.
I love it.
Yeah. So they're there to help us help everybody else. Like, and not to, you don't have to spend so much time. It's like integrating all that energy and just doing it.
Exactly. They'll give you the tools. I want to kind of expand on some of the things that you've said here so that people can understand how and where to find you, because I can just feel the dragon energy where they're really attempting to get you to say as much as you possibly can during the time that we have together. So I'm just kind of bringing us back to little pieces for the audience. I appreciate your patience with that, Barbara. One of the things that you mentioned was that you actually have a couple places where people can hear you. The Dragon Hour is one of them. There's another one, and this is actually on her YouTube channel. If you look up Barbara Worsley on YouTube, you'll find her specifically, and then the stuff about that. The Sunday nights, you also do shorter clips. Is that accurate?
Yes. So again, all dragon led. They started off by saying you need to get to more people. So I started, I think I did like a 2-minute reel. And then I realized that actually I had more to say than 2 minutes. So I call it, I usually do it on sometime on Sunday. For some reason, I mean, so I work a full-time job as well. But for some reason, they're very chatty over the weekend, like starts on Saturday. And so Sunday they would say, okay, let's pull some cards. And, so that's what I do. So it's anything from 5 to about 15 minutes. Usually whatever the theme is, I usually pull a couple of cards and say, this is the theme. These are the cards that come up, and I'll be channeling those this week. And then if stuff's come up in the new, whatever I'm directed to say. And I've actually been posting some of those on TikTok, and I'm not, and I've noticed that a lot of people like these 5 to 7 minute clips. And it's, so then if you then go to my website, which I know you put up there, which is everything's East Coast Dragon Lady. Yep. So eastcoastdragonlady.com. The person that designed my website has set it up that you can just click on Facebook and it will take you to my private Facebook page where you can join. Instagram, all of those, it'll take you to all of those. And one of the things that the dragons said to me after last year's Dragon Thunder was there's going to be a lot of people looking to connect. And they again said, do something so that people can come and listen or, join. So that's how I started doing Dragon Hour, which I do once a month. And actually, as things have been happening, I think maybe I have to do it more than once a month because the dragons keep sending more and more people to me.
So I really want to highlight something else too. First of all, for those of you who are watching, thank you so very, very much. This is Dragon Tales, as you know, TAILS, because they loved, as Barbara said, they like to have the humor in there. I was going to write that the other way, but they insisted on it being written as tales, their tales. And when I went online to actually look for dragons myself on YouTube and other places, podcasts, big shortage on dragon podcasts. They are more about Dragon Ball Z, Dragon Balls, these other they're just all kinds of different types of things that are about video games. Yes. And not at all about what we're talking about. So I have had this now out for, I'm guessing, close to a year now. I've had this Dragon Tales going, and I've started to now introduce beautiful guests like Barbara and some of the others people that I've had that you may have caught. And I plan on having more dragon people on here, those who are really truly connected to dragons, not about dragon video games at all. So I am so very excited that you too have created this Dragon Elder Song podcast with a cohort. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yes. So Kelly Springer and myself, we're actually going to be co-hosting this year's USA Galactic Dragon Thunder. So we met again, Dragon Thunder last year brought us together. An interesting story as well. So Kevin and I were meeting when he was talking about it being 3 countries this year, because that's what the dragons were directing. He's like, so, you'll be hosting. Who do you want as a co-host? And I'm like, I don't have to think about it. And he said, yeah, I'm going to ask the dragons. So I said, yeah, I'll ask the dragons as well. So we had a quick, we both came back with the same name, which was Kelly. And we were like, oh, so we got Kelly and told her the story. And she goes, the dragons chose me. So we made that connection. And then we started talking because we're like, okay, and this was literally a year ago, let's start chatting. And there was so many things that were coming up that were familiar, similar. And we're like, there has to be something. And we've, and she actually has just been doing classes on the temples. And I took her first 2 classes and I made some wonderful connections. And she's been sort of my guide in that. And we've just connected. And we thought, because we often, and like a lot of people, let's have a chat, and 2 hours will go by and we're like, oh my goodness, 2 hours. So we we were like, how can we work together? What can we bring? What do we need to do? And we thought a podcast to talk about. So we're embracing our age. That's where the elder comes in. And we talked about, so many times people get older and they think, oh, I've got nothing to offer. And we were like, wow, we've got so much to offer, that elder wisdom, the ancient part of us as well that I've woken up to, and she has. And then we were like, let's do it. And we were playing around with, that's why when you asked me, I'm like, is it elder dragon song or dragon elder song? But we were like, let's do that. And our idea was, let's first of all talk about our journey and what we've experienced. And then we're going to invite guests as well. And, we think, again, this is another place where we can maybe give tips on things, or how can you, because often people say, how do I connect with my dragons? Or how do I do this? Or how do I do that? And I always tell people it's really simple. Ask the dragons.
Exactly.
Ask them. I can ask them. I'm like, of course you can. Ask them.
And there's a beautiful example of that. Viviana, I've known Viviana as a formerly known as Tina Dubois for years. And you now know her as well. And she's really starting to be an up and coming within the dragon world. And she went from not having any idea at all about dragons to whoo, and it was because she asked. And when she asked, now she's going to be in books. She's in books around dragons. She's creating a book around dragons. She's creating oracle cards around dragons. She's in the Dragon Thunder Summit this year. So, we can go into the journey with dragons in a couple different ways. We can do it really like Viviana has, where it's just like whoosh, like you have experienced too, Barbara, is that whoosh, or we can come into it in a slower manner. For myself, it's been a slower manner. However, what I'm being shown to bring to humanity is something that I have to go through first and experience it. And that is why it's happening in the way it is for myself. So beautifully, dragons are here and they're here to stay. And it's just incredible what they want to bring to us.
I think so. And, I think the reason that eventually I got shot, literally whoosh with them, the year before that I met the dragons, I had decided 25, 30 years ago, I was into, I did all of the Reiki and other energy practices. And then, as I put it, life happened, right? I had kids, got divorced, spending time bringing up my kids and working. And I sort of stepped away from that. And then a few years ago, people kept asking me, are you not doing Reiki? You're not doing energy work? And I'm like, no. And then it just came to me that it was like, it was time, but I didn't know what. So I put it out into the universe, like, just take me on a journey. Take me and show me what I should be doing. And they were like, okay. And somebody said it was like I was going down a lazy river. I had no expectations. I didn't say, by December, I want to know. I'm like, just show me. And by the end of that year, I'd found a couple of communities that were spiritual, and it was COVID, so everything was online. And then it was like it built up to the end of the year. And I literally was catapulted into the next year, like really fast. And then I met the dragons in the summer. So it was really fast. And there are times that I go, I'm still not sure what I'm doing, but the dragons know what I'm doing. And they're like, keep with the process, right? So, I've tried to do a couple of things that haven't quite worked out. And they're like, just keep going forward and it will all happen. So
I'm going to bring this to a close here right now. We could probably talk, like you said, for a couple hours, quite easily. Yes. I really feel that dragons have a lot to share through you. I love that you're now channeling dragons, or at least aware that is what you're doing, that you've obviously been doing that for quite some time. And I'd love to have you back on to actually hone in on what channeling a dragon is all about. And we'll leave that for another conversation. I have a question to ask you, though. Do you mind?
Yeah. No.
Okay. So this is more like, I'm really all about the inner dragon energy and what that's starting to mean. And inner dragon is that action taker part of ourselves. And so if you could take unlimited action in one area of your life without getting tired and having it always work out for you, what area of your life would that be?
So what's coming to me is produce, like being able to, with ease and flow, produce, like you said, oracle cards, being able to put out without any limitation these beautiful messages that I know they're going to be giving me. And they've already given me a list of dragons that are going to be coming to me. So they've told me start in June, but they've already started giving me that. So I think, you know, and oftentimes we're restricted by finances and, you know, all of that stuff. So if I had that, I would love to just be able to put that out into the world.
Love that. And so it just has been put out into the world. I love that.
Yes.
So again, people can find you literally by typing in East Coast Dragon Lady, correct?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
On your website, if you go eastcoastdragonlady.com, you will actually have access to Barbara via Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. All of those are there as well.
Yeah.
Highly recommend you go check her out. And any last words that you would like to say?
No, I think that, thank you for inviting me. It's always, I love having people, I love talking about dragons, but I love having people also on my Dragon Out. And I know you're going to be a guest for me in September, because again, the dragons told me to take the summer off. And now I'm like, maybe not. Sometimes I think you need to take a break I've got some other things I need to do. And then come back in September. So start in the fall. Love so that would be great. I know, but thank you. This has been awesome. And you're right. There's so much more to talk about dragons, and we need to slow it down. But thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody, for listening. See you next time.